Road Warrior heel turn didn't take, obviously. I think it probably could have been seen, but it was a last-ditch effort in the Dusty regime. But when it came to the Midnight Express face turn, that did take. The fans were ready to pick you guys over the Horsemen, in many cases splitting those fans, and then stay with you guys during the feud with the original Midnight. But when you quit during the George Scott regime and then came back, 6 weeks later, was there any thought or was there any conversation at all about you guys coming back as heels?
Well, not well. For one thing, we had just wrestled, for lack of a better term, a fucking half-ass decent contract out of Jim Herd, which took a while. And secondly, the problem wasn't that we needed to switch back. We had left as shitty Babyfaces because they'd beat us to death for a couple months, right? So the thought was, when I'd originally talked to Jim Ross, who was representative of the committee, was in charge for that fucking 2 months, right? That's when they had 5 booking regimes in a 14-month period.
Yeah.
The idea was to bring us back on top. We would lose to the Freebirds in the World Tag Team Championship tournament, but we would beat everybody else. We would be getting wins on television. We needed to be stronger and more effective as the Babyfaces that we left as, and then we would have a way to turn heel. Well, then obviously, the booking committee plans were often stymied by Herd, and everything that I pitched, not only when we came back, but when I was actually on the fucking booking committee, Herd didn't want to let us do because he didn't like the Midnight Express, and that's why we ended up doing the shit with the Dynamic Dudes, was because that was the only team we could work with. We didn't argue. Remember, we'd every time I would, well, you just want to put your boys on TV. Yes, you idiot, because that's why they came back, because it was the deal, because they draw money and ratings, because that's what we were supposed to be fucking doing, you moron, right? So but the original thought was to bring us back and rehab us from getting beat up by the Samoans, and we put everybody over, including the New Zealand militia, while George Scott was around. And it's worse you can't switch and become a hot heel when you've been drubbed and beat up like a fucking dumb fuck as a babyface. You have to be strong in whatever role you're in most cases, to switch and it mean anything.
When you're in the moment, how does it feel? And I'm sure you must have anticipated this to some degree, but the biggest babyface pop you ever got may have been when you turned back heel in '89 when you turned on the Dudes. But in that moment, did you know they were going to cheer you no matter what if you turned on the Dudes?
Well, we knew it was going to be challenging to begin with for a variety of reasons. But once again, the Dudes is what I had to work with, right? So that's why I concocted. The story was Stan and Johnny Ace didn't like each other over a woman in Florida years ago, because that very well, if Johnny was a couple years older, that actually could have been true. Well, if he was more desirable. But anyway, the people up north hated the Dudes. The people down south, if you went to the house shows, the people that were there were definitely wrestling fans. They were down to those in those days. So we could have a regular match with them, and they'd cheer them because they were baby faces. And you could get them over on the spots, get a little heat on them, and then fucking beat them, and you've done something. The responses in the goddamn Northeast, especially in Philadelphia, were so totally backwards that not only really it hurt the quality of the match. We couldn't get them over because they weren't going to get over to begin with. So we just had to do some fancy Midnight Express moves on them and give them the comeback, which the people would boo the shit out of. There was the night in Philadelphia, obviously, when they chanted "Johnny sucks dick, Johnny sucks dick," and they had the giant banner hanging from the general admission bleachers that said "Johnny sucks Shane's dick." It was a 10 by 8 foot fucking sheet that had been spray painted. And it was dreary to have those matches, because that's with the reaction being opposite, it was no fun, right? And they had a stupid gimmick, and Shane tried hard, and Johnny was a klutz, and it wasn't going to work. But so anyway, in answer to your question, I knew the people were going to be glad we were going to be back together, but at least it was a way for us to switch heel and get back on the proper side. But I had no idea that it would be like goddamn an election result, a popular election result, when I whacked Shane over the back of the fucking head. No, I did not. But once again, we're in Troy, New York, and as far away from a Southern fan base as we could possibly get. They were very anti-Babyface, except for Flair, who was a babyface that night. And so, and I mean, we had a couple of, obviously they liked the Road Warrior babyface type, not the Dynamic Dude type.